So in today's episode, I'm with Nigel Bajos, who is the budget filmmaker on YouTube. He talks a lot of things about Lumix cameras, Micro Four Thirds cameras, and then just gear that actually can really make a difference in filmmaking. One thing that you should know about Nigel is he doesn't need the most expensive piece of equipment to make something look good. You can give him the cheapest camera, a decent lens, and good audio and great lighting, and he'll make anything look really, really clean. So today, Nigel, what's up, man?
Yeah.
I'm in his place. I'm in Oregon right now.
Yeah, Matthew, thanks for coming in my office. Kind of crusty up here, but I'm glad you're here, man.
Yeah. So literally maybe just an hour or so ago, the S9 just got announced, and I'm stoked because now I'm off NDA, which I can finally reveal in my little...
He's got it here with him.
This is so... Okay, here we go. Bum, 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 bum.
If he can get out of the bag.
Here you go.
Wow.
In this episode, we're going to talk about your first impressions. I don't know what videos you've seen so far, so I can answer any of your questions here.
Sick. I have only seen one by David Altizer, the gear guy. But
yeah, so this is the S9. In this video, we're going to get Nigel's impressions, thoughts on the S9, who he thinks it's for. I just noticed like 10 things just came out of that when I took that out. I'll get it later. But...
Well, first off, it's a little bit bigger than I thought it was going to be. It's got like...
Should I throw a pancake lens on it?
Yeah, maybe. I mean...
That lens, I will say, everyone in Japan used that lens.
Really?
Because of this new feature called hybrid zoom, which I don't know if you heard about.
I don't think so.
Hybrid zoom is like... it's not a digital crop, which it technically is, but it turns your 28 to 200, and you can change how much more it zooms in. It turns your 28 to 200 to a 28 to 624 mil lens. And for photos, and then for video, it's only a 1.4x crop.
Okay.
So like a 309 mil.
Yeah.
But it looks actually really good.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, first impressions as far as just like handling it, like... I feel like this little extra thumb or, finger grip kind of helps a little bit, at least for my hands.
Yeah.
I could definitely see using a slightly larger grip, but I think that would probably take away from the compactness of this camera, which I think is like the main thing that they're trying to do. Yeah, like I've been waiting for Lumix to release a camera like this because I've always been wanting something small that I can just kind of take around with me, like as like an everyday carry camera, but that I could also pair with something like my S5 IIX. Initially, that's kind of what I was hoping for, but I know that it's not exactly that, right?
Right.
Because there are some limitations as far as like video goes. So it's more of like a carry around with your family when you're hiking, as opposed to using it on set as like a secondary angle.
Right. Which, I mean, it does have like, all the same long GOP options that the S5 II and 2X have. The only downside is it's a 10-minute record limit for 6K, 15-minute record limit for 4K, and then a 20-minute record limit for 1080.
Yeah. And that's like I'm a 4K all day kind of person, and like I could, if I was just making YouTube videos and I wasn't doing like long form content like this podcast, I could totally see myself just using this as like, a camera to create content with. But that was the only like downside that I saw was like the record limits. And I know that it's because of the fans, right? There is no fans in this one.
There's no fans. Because on the S5 IIX and 2, the fans are where the viewfinder is. So hence no viewfinder, there's no fans. One thing that I wish they added, and I was a little bit bummed out, I was like, oh, maybe Lumix will come out with an electronic viewfinder. But if you notice, since I lost my cold shoe when I was handing it to you, it's a cold shoe. It's not a hot shoe.
Yeah.
So there's no way to add an electronic viewfinder, which is a bit of a bummer.
Does that mean that there's no electronic connections at all, so you can't fire a flash off of this?
Nope, can't fire a flash.
Really?
Because it's also, there's no mechanical shutter.
Okay.
So... Which I took a lot of photos where mechanical shutter would have been an issue, or like the rolling shutter would have been an issue. And I didn't notice a ton of rolling shutter in my photos or videos for too much, but it was a bit of a bummer not having an electronic viewfinder or having some type of system.
So essentially, this is mostly just for putting a microphone on, or maybe if, in the future, if, people start coming out with like optical viewfinders that you could put
Right.
on there just for framing.
So there is optical viewfinders out there already. So I saw it was like $50. I was like, ooh, that's kind of a lot. But or Leica has them too, but Leicas are like $400 for
It would just be finding the right lens for that optical
Right.
viewfinder, because they're normally for 28, 35, and 50 is what most optical viewfinders are,
I
right?
wonder if someone could come out with this camera, an optical viewfinder that say it's like that 18 to 40, and
Yeah.
you can adjust it somehow
Yeah.
in the little thing itself.
But that's also something that I was kind of hoping for too, which I'm sure that Panasonic is going to eventually start releasing, and hopefully Sigma 2 is pancake lenses for cameras like this.
Right.
Because I feel like that would make the most sense right now with the setup that you have right now. I know that little 26 millimeter makes it a lot smaller, but right now I feel like this doesn't feel smaller than my S5 2X. It just feels like an S5 2X with maybe a smaller grip and no no EVF.
Right.
But that's where I think it would make sense, is if there was actual pancake lenses that were good. I know that Sigma has some, but those are still like, small soda can size, like
Right.
they're not actual pancake.
But when Lumix comes out with the 18 to 40, which in theory, I think it's going to be like this big.
Yeah.
So it's going to be something where it's like a pancake zoom lens, and then they have their pancake lens, which is the F8 though.
Yeah.
That's more of that fun. It's only going to be $200. So it's like one of those lenses where it's like, if you want a lens that's just for fun,
Yeah.
that's what it is. I'm pretty sure though, if you pre-order it right now when the video came out, which I think it's until June when it starts shipping or something, you can get that lens for free.
Okay.
But
How do you feel about the pricing on this? Like,
I will say, based off the features and based off what other cameras are out on the market, I feel like it's fair.
yeah.
Granted, I think this would have sold a lot better if it was like $9.99. That would have sold like crazy. However, say if it was $9.99 and it didn't have electronic image body stabilization, say it was $99, didn't have vlog.
Yeah.
Like it has a ton of features where it's like, all right, this camera has a lot of stuff in it. Granted, yeah, record limits, that kind of sucks, but like,
See, to me, I feel like there could be some potential upgrades as far as like firmware updates that could fix this camera for some
Right.
people. I know that I talked about the ZVE1 by Sony. That one is like, similar in size to this, but it's more video feature, but that one will still overheat because that's just the nature of, small cameras like this.
Right.
But there are companies like Tilta that make fans that just stick on the back.
Yep.
I guess if Lumix ever decided to like remove those record limits and just let the camera overheat, but we can use, external devices like those Tilta fans just to make them, to make cameras like this more usable for video.
yeah, and I think that's a lot of the issues currently with the camera. This is a pre-production model, but it's just firmware updates that obviously Lumix has been known to do. So it's
Yeah.
like and it's on I think it's on the G9 Mark II where you can change your temperature control. Currently, I don't believe that's on this camera, but you can change it to be like, I want my temperature, just let it go as long as possible until it overheats. Right now, that's not on it. Once it hits the overheat, it just overheats. You can't control like how much. So
Yeah.
maybe in a future firmware update, it's like, all right, turn it to off. Like, don't let my camera like cool down if it needs to. You can turn it to high or low or whatever.
Yeah.
And then just it will up the record quality or up the record time limits to the camera.
Yeah. And even just like adding some modes in like H.264 or something that we could just record, even if it's just like an 8-bit, just
Yeah.
record super long video files. That would be sick too. Like
Now-
otherwise, this is what I was asking for. It was just like a small camera like this. And this is like, I like a lot of Micro Four Nerds videos because she's like, she always talks about like the everyday carry. And that's kind of, it's been my biggest gripe with like having two different lens systems is that like I just want to have one lens system, not L mount and Micro Four Thirds. I just want L mount, and this kind of is the solution right now. At least I'm sure Lumix is going to continue releasing small cameras like this, but
And I feel like once that 18 to 40, that's going to be like, I'm really bummed that lens wasn't available right now because I don't even know what the focus breathing's like. I don't know anything about that. Like we didn't get to play with that lens at all.
Yeah.
But I feel like that lens will make this camera the perfect combination. Now, have you heard about the 3.8K open gate, the new open gate setting? So there's a new setting called MP4 Lite, which basically with the new Lumix Lab app, which is a new app, Lumix Lab, it allows you to transfer your videos directly from your camera via 5 gigahertz to the app. And then you can color it or you can use your Luts with the app and then save it to your camera roll and then post it on social media.
Yeah.
So it's this new recording limit, which is a lower quality 4K open gate setting. Do you see yourself potentially using that?
I mean,
it's only 50 megabytes too.
Wow. I mean, that's actually, I mean, that is kind of sick. I do like, I mean, I like, you know, like right now I'm not shooting an open gate. I'm just shooting, 16:9, but like open gate hasn't been like, I mean, I like that it's there. I like to have it and not need it rather than need it and not have it kind of a thing.
Do you not use it for YouTube videos?
No, dude, I shoot like straight up.
This guy
4K,
is wild.
Well, dude, I'm just an old dog. I can't teach new tricks, I guess. But I mean, I'll use it if I'm doing a client shoot and I specifically know that they're going to want social media stuff.
Right.
But for my own stuff, I'm just too used to shooting 16:9 and it's just how I like to frame things. So I don't know. I know I can put frame markers and everything.
I always end up reframing, just like, oh, let me just shift this image just a little bit.
That's where I just punch in and I just zoom in on a 4K image.
You also have a lot more space than me. My office is less than how much space we're recording right now. So
okay, well that makes sense. Yeah.
But now there's a couple new settings on this camera that like I told you about. Obviously the hybrid zoom. I think though, how much of a photo editor are you?
Honestly, like this is what I tell people. I'm a photographer in the same way that I'm a cyclist. Like I know how to ride a bike, but I'm not going on the Tour de France or anything like that. I'm not really super into photos.
Okay, well I see a guitar from where I'm sitting. Do you play guitar?
I do. Yeah, a little bit.
But do you play bass? You know how to.
I don't know how to. Well, I mean, I might be able to. I don't know. I'm a very novice guitar player too.
Okay.
So.
So I've been playing guitar for like 14 years now.
Okay.
But the way I describe is like video is like playing the guitar.
Sure.
It's very complex. It's a lot more complex. It can get super complex and be a little bit simple. Taking photos is like playing the bass. It's like a lot more simple, but it can be super complex. Very similar, but also very different.
Sure.
But with that said, I hate taking photos and I hate editing photos.
Yeah.
So with the new Lumix Lab app, you can take a photo. It connects within like 30 seconds to your phone. And then you can transfer the photo to your phone, and then you can edit it directly on the app. So, but then it gets crazier. So say you're like, all right, this looks amazing. Say you're like, I love how this looks. You can now with the app create a LUT and then send that LUT to your camera. But then it gets even crazier. Say we both have this S9 and I'm like, oh, Nigel, you like my LUT or you like how this looks? Let me create this LUT and let me send it to you, and I can airdrop this LUT to you and you can input it into your camera just like that.
Yeah.
That's made me enjoy photography with this camera so much. Plus, you can also apply 2 LUTs to it now.
Oh, so you can like stack them.
You can stack LUTs now.
That's kind of sick.
And you can change the opacity. That's
pretty sick. I mean, honestly, like if I was more into photos, I'd probably be a lot more stoked. But like, it kind of seems like the craze that a lot of like the Fuji shooters have, where it's like they create like those recipes, but it's almost a little bit more fine tuned with this, where you can actually like, it's not just creating a recipe with what the camera gives you. You can create an actual like LUT for your photos, essentially.
Or say you went to DaVinci Resolve, just took a clip, changed it to Vlog to ARRI log. You can apply that to one of the LUTs, and then on the second LUT, have it be an ARRI log LUT.
Yeah.
And now you just have ARRI log, or you burn in the ARRI log, and then you have ARRI log. Footage in a sense.
Sure.
I haven't tested that out, but I've heard some people thinking about that. I'm like, oh, that's actually really sick that you can do that.
Yeah.
How good of a quality is it? I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
So do you see yourself potentially using this camera or purchasing this camera or getting your hands on this camera?
I mean, if Panasonic wanted to send it to me, I would definitely review it. As it stands right now, I probably wouldn't get it just because I'm more video focused than photo focused. The only pictures that I really take are like, just, candids, or I'm taking thumbnail photos, which this is like overkill for. I mean, that's what I do with my little G85. If like, some of the video issues were resolved a little bit, if I could choose to record longer, even if it's going to overheat, if I could figure out a overheating solution, I could see myself using this for video. I do like that Lumix is, they're kind of listening to us, and they're like, oh, okay, you guys want smaller cameras? Let's do a smaller camera.
Right.
And this is a good introduction to it. If they made a version of this that was more of a ZVE one, or, small camera like that competitor, I'd be probably more
it is a lot
persuaded.
bigger than people probably think, but
Yeah.
it is nice. When I was in Japan watching the video announced, I was like, oh, this seems like this is about to be a new battery. And it's
Yeah.
the exact same as the S5 II.
Yeah,
2X.
which I love that. And that's something that I think I like about the Lumix S system, is that like it seems like they're trying to keep everything streamlined. So it's like you don't have to invest in all these different batteries.
Right.
The same lens mount, which is like what I like. And that's, again, my frustration with Micro Four Thirds and like L mount stuff, because it's all different. I know that like the newer Micro Four Thirds cameras, like the G9 Mark II, has the same battery, right?
Yep.
Which is nice. I like that. But yeah, I think it's nice that they're keeping everything kind of streamlined and all in the same ecosystem, which I like.
Yeah. Two little questions for you as we kind of land the plane on my
Yeah.
podcast episode. What excites you most about this camera for Lumix, and then for yourself as well?
Yeah, so I think the most exciting thing is probably just the size. Now, we were kind of talking about that before, where it's just like, you like rigging your stuff up, and I know that there's an entire, like, I'm in the minority when it comes to like how I like my cameras. I like them as small as I can possibly get them, because I do mostly content creation at this point, and I don't need to like, have it super rigged up for anything. So I like where Lumix is going with the smaller form factor. I mean, the S5 IIX is still a perfectly small enough camera for me to do what I need to do, but I like the smaller the better. Whenever I'm, going out in public and filming stuff, if my camera can be smaller but still produce the same quality as my bigger cameras, I love that. So that's something that I like. And I like that we have options now for like a secondary camera, because I think that was lacking with the S system, is that like all we had were these cameras that were all essentially the same size.
Yep.
And now we have something smaller that, like, if I wanted a little, sling around my shoulder type of camera,
It's
that's
great.
what this can be.
It's great too, because this is Lumix starting to build their ecosystem. This is obviously, it's hard because I don't think the days of a $500 camera are with us anymore, like with these type of settings and this type of quality.
Yeah.
However, with all that said, though, it is great that Lumix is building an ecosystem or path to take. Now maybe you go S9 to an S5 IIX, from maybe an S5 IIX, eventually an S1 Mark II, S1H Mark II, because there's no shot Lumix isn't making those things. They're definitely coming out. So it is great that Lumix is starting to build this ecosystem for their full frame system. Right now, I feel like the Micro Four Thirds system is starting to peak, which it's like, all right, are you going to throw 8K in a Micro Four Thirds camera? Maybe.
Yeah.
But it's hard to see where the future of Micro Four Thirds cameras are. Before I go on to my last question, do you have any thoughts on that? Where do you think the future for Micro Four Thirds will be going?
Honestly, okay, so there is...
I know you just bought another G85, so you're just like, whatever.
It's just weird, because, like, I don't know, if my G85 could do everything my S5 IIX could do, I would just be using that full time. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I don't really care that much about sensor size anymore, just because I feel like I kind of have, I don't know, like, I'd rather have just the smallest, compact setup I possibly can. But, like, that was my biggest reason to, start using the full frame stuff, is just because, the phase detect autofocus, much better dynamic range, the low light capabilities, the dual ISO, all those things. If those could even get semi close in a Micro Four Thirds camera, I could actually potentially see myself switching out of a full frame camera and going back to Micro Four Thirds, just because I like the form factor of Micro Four Thirds lenses. Even though, like, I know that we're going to get smaller lenses, you'll never get anything smaller than like a 14 millimeter f2.5. You know what I mean? Like, that's like,
right.
Like, that's like the peak, like, small lens that I like carrying around with me everywhere.
And yeah, there's definitely a market for the pancake lenses. And
Yeah.
it is cool now, especially with the 26 mil f8. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's an f8.
Sure.
But it is cool seeing that Lumix is thinking and future thinking of starting to make pancake lenses for
Yeah.
users like you. And then especially with this type of camera system,
Yeah.
to be something that you can just literally throw in a bag, takes no space basically, and be able to go out and shoot really cool photos.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think? Who do you think should end up getting this camera, or who do you think this camera is going to end up being for?
I think that if you have no camera right now and you just want a full frame, small bodied camera that you can, shoot some video with, but I definitely think this is more of a photography focused camera. I could see, someone who shoots a lot of like travel stuff, or I mean, like there's a lot of people that I know that shoot like just, 15-second, 30-second, like little short ad pieces, and all they
Right.
need is like, a ZV-1 or something like that. Like all they need is like these really small cameras. Just imagine being able to do what they're doing with something that's full frame, and you get vlog and all of the great features that you would get in this S9. I could see someone, purchasing this as just like a really small run and gun content creation camera.
And I feel like this new generation of creators who don't really understand, Final Cut Pro, Premiere Pro, or
Yeah.
DaVinci Resolve, they don't understand those editing systems.
Yeah.
Being able to have a camera that can literally transfer the videos to your phone and edit on your phone
Yeah.
is pretty impressive what Lumix is doing.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't think this camera is for filmmakers at all. As a BTS camera or as like small pickup B-roll shots, for
Yeah,
sure.
well, I mean, that's what I was gonna say too. Is that like this has phase detect autofocus,
Yep.
right? Like a lot of the times when I'm, shooting, like little spec projects and I want some BTS of it, I either have to like give somebody my G85 or hope that they have their own camera with good autofocus that they can just
Right.
run around and pick up shots. If I had something like this, I could throw this 28 to 200 and just say, here, film me filming stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it would keep me in focus. It would be amazing quality. And I don't need a 30-minute record time because those are just small little pickup shots.
Right. And I mean, as a B-roll camera, but the issue is the only reason I would not recommend someone who's like, I want to become a filmmaker, this camera
Yeah.
is, like you said, the video is capable. You really don't need to record 10 minutes when you're doing B-roll shots for
Yeah.
most things. The only issue is, for whatever reason, they put the micro HDMI. So if you want to connect a monitor and view through a monitor, they put it on the handle side.
Oh, yeah, that's the problem. Even my G85 has it on the right side or like the left side,
Right.
I guess.
Yeah, sorry, I now have all my peak design clips, but yeah, so it's like that just makes this camera.
Micro HDMI.
Yes, it is micro, but it makes it the hard part where it's like, all right, you can't really use
Yeah.
this for anything besides like
Yeah,
a
you
small
would-
BTS.
Yeah, you would really have to be like wondering who would be buying this camera and trying to put a monitor on it. You know what I mean? Like that's
I mean, I've considered like building my camera rig video on this. I'm
Really?
like, no, I'm like, there's no shot I'm doing this.
yeah,
I think I would only do it for memes.
yeah, for sure.
Because I mean, what would I pick? I would pick a top handle. I don't even know how. No shot any camera company's coming out with a full cage.
Yeah, I mean, you might see Small Rig come out with a little half cage or something like that, but I can't. Yeah, again, like what Small Rig has right now, this little thumb grip, I think is probably the best thing that you can really
Right.
do if you want to keep this camera nice and small.
Awesome. Well, Nigel, let my audience know where they can check you out, see your stuff. If you don't know who Nigel is already, I'm really shocked. Because you've been dedicated to Lumix without being dedicated to Lumix.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like a Lumix ambassador, but I've been shooting Lumix since 2013. That's when I got my first GH3.
That's wild. That was 13.
Yeah, I was probably 23. That's whatever. But yeah, you can find me at my YouTube channel, which is just Nigel Bajos, all one word. And I have a second channel too, which I post a lot of other just random stuff, which is Nigel Barros 2, TOO.
Okay, so you just said your last name two different ways.
Yeah, okay, well,
You literally just said Nigel Bajos, and then you could check out my second channel.
at Nigel Bajos too. It's just, it's hard because I feel like I say it the way that like my head knows that it's pronounced, but then people don't know how it's spelled. And so then I try to sell it the way that it's spelled. And then it just
It's just
confuses
your,
people.
it's just your, what is that called? Your alter ego, your
Yeah.
identity.
My last name is pronounced Bajos, but just for simplicity's sake, it's Barros. Yeah.
There you
And
go.
you can also check me out on Instagram too. I post stuff there.
Cool. Well, thanks, man, for joining me.
Dude, thanks
This is going to be the first podcast in person.
Dude, yeah. I mean, you're the first YouTuber, like actual YouTuber, I think, that I've like met in real life.
Oh, that's wild.
And hey, Matt was the first person that was ever on my podcast. So
I know.
there you go.
And if I'm on another episode, if we do an episode after this,
Yeah,
it'll
go
be my
check
third
out-
time.
Yeah, go check out my episode with Matt, which will be on my second channel.
Yes.
All right.
Sweet.
Later.